In February 2012, a young boy left his home to go to a local 7-Eleven for some Skittles and a drink. The horror that he would face on his way back home was something that was truly unthinkable. The murder of Trayvon Martin is not only a case that shook American history, but a case that started an entire movement. Join us as we discuss this case on this episode of A Day with Crime. Welcome to A Day with Crime podcast, where a crime a day keeps the doctor away. Here are your hosts, David and Geneva McClain.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome to A Day with Crime. We are your hosts, David
and Geneva.
All right, everybody, thank you for coming back to this episode. We thank you guys for being with us this long. It's been slightly over a month, and we are thoroughly enjoying ourselves. Geneva, you enjoying yourself with this podcast thing?
Most definitely. I think it's super fun, having our discussions, agreeing or not agreeing. All of it's fun, I think.
So we want to thank you for all the feedback that we have been getting over the time here. A few more people has decided to chime in and to give us some feedback, so we do appreciate that. 139,000 million trillion %. You got anything to say on that topic there, Geneva?
Just thank you to everyone that has supported us. Thank you to our patrons. Even if you're not a patron, even if you're just subscribed, thank you for that. Because really, we couldn't do this if we didn't have any listeners. So, I just want to make sure that everybody knows how appreciative of everyone we are, whether they pay, to help us out or not. Everyone is important. On top of, I was going to say something else and then I forgot. Hold on. Yes, and thank you to the couple actually more than a couple people. We've had quite a few people that have joined our social medias, Twitter and Instagram for sure, but we have had a couple people in the last week or so that have also joined our Facebook group. In the Facebook group, I'm going to start to post some discussion type topics. Obviously, you always have, that's always a place that you can post your own true crime things as well. But yeah, I'm going to get that group moving a little bit more than it is. So, always check out the social media, send us an email, all that good stuff.
So let's jump into today's case. We want to let you guys know that today's case is a fan request. So if you guys have listened to us over the last few episodes, we always say that we got a fan request that will trump whatever we had next to shoot, and this is true to our word. So this case is brought to you by Cherie Reed. She wrote us through email, asked us to tackle this case, and this case today is on Trayvon Martin. It is truly a case we probably would have done at some time, but since this is Cherie's request, here we go. So, Trayvon Benjamin Martin was born February 5th of 1995 to Sabrina Fulton and Tracy Martin. Although his parents divorced in 1999, they are still very vocal and they are together on the whole Trayvon Martin situation. He resided in Miami Gardens, Florida. He had dreams of playing professional basketball. In high school, that was put aside, though, because he wanted to start a career in working with airplanes. So due to that, in his first year at Carroll City High, he attended classes in the morning, and then he went to George T. Baker Aviation School for the rest of the school day. So he was a very smart kid, and his aunt always said that they never seen him walking around without wearing his prized hoodie. This is very important to this case, so it's very important you guys remember because his hoodie does come up quite a bit throughout this case. So even though he was a smart kid, he also had a few problems, and we have to discuss that, being the true journalists that we are. So he did have a few problems in his life, and it was used in his case against him. So he was known on Twitter by the nickname Slim. Under his nickname, he posted thousands of tweets, and according to his digital footprint, he was portrayed as having a sense of humor and a preoccupation with girls, which at age 17, that's very, very normal. Some of his tweets talked about street life as well as his unhappiness at his then high school, Crop, which he had transferred to in his sophomore year from Carroll City. His critics always like to point out the fact that he had tattoos and he had empty marijuana bags, as well as he was wearing a gold grill in a picture that was produced online. He had text messages supposedly saying he had a violent side, and also photos had surfaced of Trayvon posing with a gun. Efforts were made to keep this out of the public, as well as the fact that on the week that he was shot, he also was suspended from school due to marijuana. However, barring all that, on February 26, 2012, everything changed when Trayvon walked to a 7-Eleven store where he purchased some Skittles and a soft drink. After returning from the store, he was spotted by George Zimmerman, a mixed Hispanic male, and a neighborhood watch officer. Zimmerman called the Sanford City Police to report Martin, saying he looked suspicious. An altercation happened between the two, and Zimmerman shot and killed Martin. He claimed self-defense, and he was arrested and charged with Trayvon's murder. On July 13, 2013, Zimmerman was acquitted of second-degree murder and manslaughter. This was greatly in part due in large to a stand your ground law, which is all through the state of Florida. So that's my synopsis. But before we go on, I would like Geneva, since you live in the state of Florida, why don't you go ahead and tell all of our listeners exactly what stand your ground law is?
All right. Well, the stand your ground law is written up inside of the Florida statutes. It is written into Chapter 776, and it is written in as the justifiable use of force. Now, the resource that I'm getting this from is leg.state.fl.us. So this is actually the full statutes, the legal not legal, but the good source, if you will. This is the one that is written up by the state of Florida on the online Sunshine site. So this is the official internet site of Florida legislature. It is written in as 776.013, and it reads: home protection, use or threatened use of deadly force, presumption of fear or death or great bodily harm. Section 1 does state a person who is in a dwelling or residence in which the person has a right to be, has no duty to retreat, and has the right to stand his or her ground and use or threaten to use a non-deadly force against another when and to the extent that the person reasonably believes that such conduct is necessary to defend himself or herself or another against the other's imminent use of unlawful force. Or B, deadly force, if he or she reasonably believes that using or threatening to use such force is necessary to prevent imminent death or great bodily harm to himself or herself or another, or to prevent the imminent commission of a forcible felony. So, the one that we are talking about is using deadly force or a weapon, such as a gun, in order to kill someone. So, essentially, you can get away with murder essentially murder, if you feel that you are being threatened. So if someone was to break into my house right now, and I was to pick up the can of Glade spray that I have sitting in front of my computer at the moment, and I threw it at them, it hit them in the head, and it killed them, theoretically, I could get away with that because I could have said that I used deadly force in order to protect myself or whoever was in my home.
And I believe, if I'm not wrong, that, excuse me, Florida still has a law where you can conceal a weapon, but according to what
they do.
Okay, so according to what I've all read, pretty much according to him himself, George Zimmerman was actually wearing his gun where it kind of was in plain view, or he just had to lift his shirt up and there was his gun.
It is legal to conceal a weapon as long as you have the concealed weapons permit. That is correct, as long as you are not a felon and can otherwise carry a gun and you have done all of the necessary things, such as take classes and things like that. I believe there is I don't know, because truthfully, I have never really looked into the law. I cannot legally carry a gun. So, from what I have understood from people that I know that do carry concealed weapons, As long as you go through what you're supposed to and you carry guns that meet the requirement for the legal concealed carry, there is nothing that they can do about if you have a gun concealed or unconcealed. There are plenty of people that walk around, at least where I live. I don't want to give my exact location, but I do live within Volusia County. I see plenty of people that are packing right on their hip. And as long as you don't enter a dwelling that does not, or that has signs that say no weapons, there's really nothing that they can do about it. So if you were to, even if you're not a police officer, who they obviously carry their weapons unconcealed, I have seen people go into certain places such as McDonald's, some other fast food places as well. McDonald's was just one off the top of my head. And I worked there for a while and had seen people walk in with unconcealed weapons, I guess. Maybe not unconcealed completely, but, you know, under shirts or whatever in a holster. And there was nothing that we could do about it. Now, there are bars and such down here that do not allow you to bring any weapons, concealed or unconcealed, at all. And they're mostly biker bars, but they will have big signs that say something such as no weapons, no colors. That's usually what they say. Like, no weapons, no colors, which colors is not what you think it is. Because I ain't gonna lie, when I first moved to Florida, I saw a sign that said no weapons, no colors on the outside of a bar, and I thought they meant colored people because I was extremely naive when I moved to Florida. They simply mean no, like, if you're, like, part of a biker, I don't want to say biker gang, but if you're part of a motorcycle club, like, you can't walk in there wearing, like, your paraphernalia. That's what they mean by colors, not, like, colored people. Everybody's allowed to go in. No, for real.
So,
oh, look, I'm sorry. I even asked Keith, and I've been down here for like 3 years before I met Keith, I think 2.5 years. And I actually asked Keith one day, I was like, because he's like, do you want to go in here? And I was like, I can't go in there. That's literally what I said. He was like, why? I'm like, it says no colors. He's like, not colored people.
Yeah, you know, this is 2018,
Not that.
not 1955.
Not that. Well, heck, I don't know. I had never seen a sign on the outside of anything that said no colors, no weapons.
Down here, they're everywhere because of that. So they're, you know, they don't want to have any Crips and Bloods, whatever, showing up at the same time. And so they just say no colors.
Right, they don't.
But,
yeah, and some of them will say, like, no weapons, no colors, no attitudes. Like,
so all of that is important to this case, which you guys are about to find out why. Because all of that, at some point, the concealment of the gun, the stand your ground law, all factors into Trayvon Martin's case. So let's go ahead and dive in a little bit. Before we start, I want to say that we are trying to be as respectful to the victim in this case, being Trayvon, as we possibly can. I know that there's been some people that's kind of eaten us up a little bit over a couple of other cases, like Jody Arias, for instance, because of the stance that we had.
right.
As journalists, which is what we are, it would be, you guys would not be happy if we left something out and then you wouldn't research yourself and you found it. So we have to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly, no matter where we stand on. We're just going to give you the straight truth, then we'll take you from there. So on the Trayvon Martin case, I do want to point out that he was not high. He was not under the influence of any drugs, alcohol at the time that this incident took place. He was actually minding his own business. There had been a lot of break-ins around his area at the time, and George Zimmerman was the neighborhood watch captain. Now, there has been some speculation over that, though, because if you watch certain things and listen to certain things, they would say, some people say he was, and then some people will say that he is a wannabe acting neighborhood watch captain. So let's go into that a little bit. Doing the research, I found out that he wanted this job because he wanted to be a cop in his earlier years. For whatever reason, that did not work out for George Zimmerman, so the next best thing that he thought he could do would be the neighborhood watch captain. In this role, he carried his gun all the time, and he looked for, in my opinion, just from what I've researched on the guy, he looked for ways and reasons to want to run around and do something. He is what we would call a guy who has what we call the big man complex, because he was short, and a lot of people, and I'm not saying all short people have this, but there are some people who feel because of their height that they're bigger when they have a gun or they have some kind of authority, and this is kind of the way in which George Zimmerman was acting. I also want to point out the fact, because race greatly comes into this case, and I have tried to remove myself from the racial side of things, but I can't, because what you're going to find out as we discuss this case, the research takes you back to it, and some of the things that George Zimmerman himself has done is pointing all to being a racial situation. So I do want to point out, since there's been great argument about his race on, online and every place else I've seen, George Zimmerman is a mixed breed. He is white and he is Hispanic. His father is white, his mother is Hispanic. So there you go. That is important because it goes back to the race thing, and there's a lot of debate online about if Trayvon was white and he was black, would this be different? So what I want to do first of all is get Geneva. Let's have an open discussion. What do we think about George Zimmerman? Let's tackle this topic by topic. The night that this happened, well, let's do this first. Before you answer that, I have the 911 call that George Zimmerman made to the police at that time. This call, folks, is important because it's going to set up our whole discussion, and it's going to get you to think about some things of why this kind of goes back to race. And then before this is over, I'm going to tell you a couple things you may or may not know that's going to further that point. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to play for you in its entirety the 911 call that was made that night by George Zimmerman. It is 4 minutes and 11 seconds long. It is the unredacted version, so it gives out the phone numbers and the addresses. Nobody go call them and try to find out where they live, because I'm sure they've all moved. We know George Zimmerman definitely's moved. And I want you to pay close attention. There's a couple of things that George Zimmerman talks about or says that we want to discuss with you guys and see if you guys are on the same wavelength. So here you go, the 911 call.
Sanford Police Department. Line is being recorded. Sean.
Hey, we've had some break-ins in my neighborhood, and there's a real suspicious guy. It's Retrieview Circle. The best address I can give you is 111 Retrieview Circle. This guy looks like he's up to no good, or he's on drugs or something. It's raining, and he's just walking around looking about.
Okay, and this guy, is he white, black, or Hispanic?
He looks black.
Did you see what he was wearing?
Yeah, a dark hoodie, like a gray hoodie, and either jeans or sweatpants and white tennis shoes. He's here now. He was just staring.
Oh, he's just walking around the area?
At all the houses.
Okay.
And now he's just staring at me.
Okay, and he said it's 1111 Retrieview or 111?
That's the clubhouse.
That's the clubhouse. Do you know what he's near the clubhouse right now?
Yeah, now he's coming towards me.
Okay.
He's got his hand in his waistband. Yeah, he's a black male.
Okay. How old would you say he looks?
He's got a button on his shirt. Late teens.
Late teens, okay.
Something's wrong with him. Yeah. He's coming to check me out. He's got something in his hands. I don't know what his deal is.
Okay, just let me know if he does anything, okay?
Over here.
Yeah, we got him on the way. Just let me know if this guy does anything else.
Okay. These assholes, they always get away. Yeah. When you come to the clubhouse, you come straight in and make a left. Actually, you would go past the clubhouse.
Okay, it says on the left-hand side from the clubhouse?
No, you go in straight through the entrance, and then you make a left. Yeah, you go straight in, don't turn and make a left. Shit, he's running.
He's running? Which way is he running?
Down towards the other entrance of the neighborhood.
Okay, which entrance is that he's heading towards?
The back entrance.
Are you following him?
Yeah.
Okay, we don't need you to do that.
Okay.
All right, sir, what is your name?
George. He ran.
All right, George, what's your last name?
Zimmerman.
And, George, what's the phone number you're calling from?
407-435-2400.
All right, George, we do have him on the way. Do you want to meet with the officer when they get out there?
Yeah.
All right, where are you going to meet with them at?
If they come in through the gate, tell them to go straight past the clubhouse and straight past the clubhouse and make a left. And then they go past the mailboxes. You'll see my truck.
Okay, what address are you parked in front of?
I don't know. It's a cut through, so I don't know the address.
Okay, do you live in the area?
Yeah.
What's your apartment number?
It's a home. It's 1950. Oh, crap. I don't want to give it out loud. I don't know where this kid is.
Okay, do you want to just meet with him right near the mailboxes then?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, George, I'll let him know to meet you with you out there, okay?
Actually, could you have him call me and I'll tell him where I'm at?
Okay, yeah, that's no problem.
You need my number or you got it?
Yeah, I got it. It's 407-435-2400.
Yeah, you got it.
Okay, no problem. I'll let them know to call you when they're in the area.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
All right, so that was a 911 call. So let's start with this. So you heard the call, Geneva. The whole listeners heard it. Give me what your take is on that call.
I think he's a liar. To be honest, okay, so before today, I have heard the George Zimmerman 911 call. This was actually a case that I followed pretty close when it happened, partly because this was, I think, this was what, in the 2011, right?
2012, yeah.
2012. Okay, so this was literally, this happened like in the throes of me trying to move to Florida. Like I was talking about moving to Florida while this was happening. You understand? So it actually kind of freaked me out a little bit. I was like, what? Like, you know what I mean? I was like freaking out and stuff, you know, because people be telling me that like Florida's like it is in Hollywood and all that stuff. It's not. But anyways, I love Florida. Don't get me wrong. But I followed this case pretty close, and something about his 911 call just has never sat correctly with me. I understand being a little bit uneasy by the fact that there's someone strange walking around. He was wearing a hooded sweatshirt, which, I mean, whatever. You know, a lot of people, I'm sure this will be mentioned later, but a lot of people in memory of him, maybe memoriam, whatever, of Trayvon, they had hoodies that were made that had different sayings on them that were dark colored hoodies similar to the style that he had worn that night. I understand. I mean, he wasn't, from everything that I have seen, he was not a small dude. Like, he was a teenager, but he looked like a grown man. You know what I'm saying? So I can understand being a little bit freaked out by somebody just walking around with, where you think they're not supposed to be. But I feel like certain things that he said, Dad, we talked about this before, about him making the comment about something about these a-holes always get away with it.
Right. He said that
kind
on
of
the
thing.
Call. Right.
Right. I mean, he said very blatantly. I mean, I'm trying to keep it as PG as possible. Y'all heard it through the call, so I kind of feel like I can just say it because it's in there. So we are sorry for the language this week, I guess. But, you know, he does say these assholes in always get away with it under his breath in the call. So why are you, if you feel threatened, right, and you feel like someone's coming after you or whatever, like, first of all, why would you take a step like that and then make a comment like that? Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. On top of, there is a spot where it sounds like screaming. It's disputed whether, whatever, who said it or who it was or whatever. But the call just doesn't seem genuine to me. Like, it's like he called in order to do what he felt was right, if you will. And then for those of you that are not watching us on video, I just use air quotes for all of that. I feel like he felt that he was justified in doing it because he called. You know what I'm saying?
I think George Zimmerman was looking for a fight that night, because here's some things that I'm going to tell you that maybe you or the public don't know.
Okay.
This will prove that we research these cases. Okay, so the night before,
Right.
George Zimmerman got into a fight with his wife. His
Right.
wife even came forward and said that she doesn't know what happened because she was not home because she went to her father's house due to a fight. When they asked her, do you think that George Zimmerman was capable of doing this? She goes, oh, no. Here's why I think he's looking for a fight. One, he's already upset. Two, when he made that 911 call, he had just saw Trayvon appear. Okay.
Right.
When you use terms, and I'm sorry, people, but it's the truth. When you use terms like these a-holes always get away with it, that could be taken in the same context as when somebody who is of racial nature, meaning it racially, say these people. If you know anything about African Americans, if you walk on the African American, man, you know what these people. First they say these people who. Okay, it's in that same context. Now, here's the other part of why I think he was looking for a fight that night, analyzing the 911 tape. He's telling the police officers where he is. He's saying this guy's looking at me like he's, like he wants to do something. They ask him, is he white, black, or Hispanic? And he goes, he looks black. Now, if he was truly wearing his hoodie over his head at the time, how can you really see if he was that, or you just speculating? Okay.
Right.
On top of that, Trayvon, I guess, is walking along, and at one point he says, "Oh no, he's running." Well, let's talk about that for a minute. Breaking the tape. Let's talk about why Trayvon ran. For those of you who don't know, after George Zimmerman started following him in his car, he was on the phone with his then girlfriend, who testified at the trial. He called his girlfriend and said, "There's this guy who is following me." And I'm sorry for this language, but this is what he said. She said in court, well, I have to say it, but he said, "This cracker's following me." Okay. He didn't know why this white dude was following him. And she said, "Run." And he said, "I'm not going to run. I'm just going to put my hoodie on and I'm going to keep walking." At some point where he began to feel uncomfortable, Trayvon decided to take off, still on the phone with his girlfriend, who he was talking to about this. So let's analyze that part right there. If he's using terms like these a-holes, if Trayvon is on the phone, which has been documented from his call records and from the testimony of his girlfriend, who could tell us more stuff about that, which we get into later, doesn't it kind of look like that he was just trying to cause problems with somebody? I mean, Trayvon is having to be the one that's there, but maybe he was racist and didn't want to deal with any black kid. Or do you think that maybe at this point, if a green kid came through, George Zimmerman would have still been on this same bender?
I honestly, I know that a lot of people have looked at this as a racist thing. I don't necessarily think that it would have mattered if he was black, green, or purple. You know what I'm saying? I don't think that it would have mattered if he was white. I don't think it would have mattered what color his skin actually was. The fact of the matter is, George Zimmerman had something out that night. I don't know. It could have been like you said. He could have just been looking for a fight. He could have just been mad or whatever. But for some reason, he felt the need to go after someone. And Trayvon just happened to be that person. I don't necessarily, yes, on the 911 call, they do ask him, well, do you know what color he is? Like, is he black, white, Hispanic? But at the same time, those are, those are just routine questions. They have to ask you those questions so they know who the heck they're looking for if they're going to respond to your call. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like even if we heard him say, well, from here, I can't tell what color he is. You know what I'm saying? Because if he was far enough away, you might just see a figure. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sorry, like, my fiance Keith, he's as white as a boy comes, okay? But if I see him from far away in the dark, in a dark colored hoodie, I may not be able to tell what color he is. I might be able to say, well, his stature looks like he could be white, or his stature looks like he could be black, but I'm not sure because I'm too far away. You know what I'm saying? So I don't think it would have really mattered that night what color this person was. I really don't even think it would have really mattered if they were male or female. I think that just the fact that they were an imposing figure, if you will, that looked like they could be threatening. And so George thought, oh, well, I'm Mr. Vigilante over here. Whether he was actually hired to do neighborhood watch or not, let's just assume that he was for a second. If he was hired to do neighborhood watch, I'm pretty sure that even neighborhood watch people are not supposed to use deadly force.
Okay, so again, ladies and gentlemen, understand I have tried my hardest. I set up at 2:30 this morning trying to remove race from this case, because this has been the biggest argument, is that black people was all supercharged because we the first ones up on racism. Here's the second reason why I cannot remove this, as he was not just being a racist that night. If you keep going down further in the tape, okay, now I guess the first part I skipped over is he started the tape off by saying there has been some break-ins in my area lately. Okay.
Right.
If you go further down beyond the part where he makes the a-hole statement, he's telling the cops, oh, he's running now. And you can audibly hear him and the 911 running. He's now out of his car. The wind is smacking into his cell phone. And the
right, you do hear him running.
Right, and the dispatcher says, are you following him? Now, throughout this time, when the dispatcher is asking that, if you listened closely, up underneath his breath, he said, effing dog. Why are we still calling people names? What are you meaning by the effing dog comment if you're trying to keep the peace? Now, the dispatcher is asking you, are you chasing him? And you say, yes, which the dispatcher comes back and say, we don't need you to do that. No, 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 no. And he says, okay. Further along down the tape, he's trying to get off the phone. If you're getting the same feeling that I'm getting, now that he knows which way Trayvon went, he's standing there and the 911 dispatcher says, don't chase him. So he stopped, maybe audibly so that the 911 dispatcher could hear that he's not running anymore. Now he's trying to get off the phone. Tell him to come here. Where are you supposed to go? Tell him to come in, turn whatever, right or left, come down. Oh, no. You know what? On second thought, won't you just have them go ahead and give me a call when they get here? Okay, let's talk about that. Because as soon after he says, why don't you tell them to give me a call when they get here, he asked where his truck was parked. He goes, I don't really know what the address is. And when the dispatcher said, okay, yeah, we'll have him go ahead and give you a call, he hangs up the phone. Now, this is the gap. What do you think, and I'll give you what I think happened, what do you think happened in that gap between the time now that he hung up this phone, Trayvon got shot, and the cops actually show up?
Truthfully, I think that Mr. Zimmerman, I think he just stood there. I don't think he did anything, to be honest, because I don't see. Look, this is why, and I know, Dad, that you're having trouble with the separation of race, and that's fine because your reasons are valid. But the reason that I'm not so sure that this was, I mean, I understand why black people were up in arms about it. I understand that. I'm not going to, or I'm not trying to belittle or discount anyone's feelings, black, white, Hispanic, whatever. I'm not trying to discount anyone's feelings. But the reason that I look at it the way that I do, which is that I am not 100% sure that it was race, is because I feel like George Zimmerman, no matter what color this person was, now Trayvon happened to be black, but I feel like, let's say that he saw a Spanish Mexican person running down that same street or walking down that same street, and then he says he's running now and he makes chase, right? I don't feel like anyone would have been safe from whatever wrath or fury that George Zimmerman was feeling. You understand what I'm saying? So I'm not saying for 1 second, I'm not trying to defend George Zimmerman. I'm not trying to say that he's not a racist. For all I know, he's the most racist person on this earth. You know what I'm saying? But I'm not so sure that this incident originally started because Trayvon was black. Now, it is possible that after he made chase and he made the comment about this effing dog, it is very possible that by that point it was about race. You see what I'm saying? But to begin with, I'm not 100% sure that it was about race, because really if he thought that he was one of the burglars, because he had said that there were some break-ins in this area, or if he thought that this person was a teenager, which he was, while obviously you could take it as his comment of these a-holes always get away with it, or whatever his comment was. It was along those lines. As being a racial comment, it could have also have been, while he did not say like these a-hole teenagers or these a-hole burglars, the only reason that I'm even willing to entertain the idea that he may not have been, that comment may not have been racially charged, is because he did say that there were burglaries, and most people, I'm sorry to say, when there's burglaries in any kind of a neighborhood, especially if it is a nicer-ish neighborhood, tend to blame teenagers. You know what I'm saying? They tend to blame teenagers or homeless people. So
Okay, well, let's move on further with that, because you'll see shaping wise as we go to why I can't pull myself from the color thing when we get towards the end of this. So let's talk about the night that he actually got shot. What happened next? Again, remember, his girlfriend was on the phone and heard all of this. Okay.
right.
Color or no color, this is what happened next. So Trayvon went running through the apartment complex while talking to his girlfriend. His girlfriend comes back and says that at one point Trayvon stops and says that now he was cornered, because I'm going to tell you what I think happened. He wanted to get off of the 911 call so quick because he wanted to follow Trayvon, which is exactly what he did. When Trayvon made the comment to his girlfriend, "Oh, he's here, I'm cornered," because he had pinned him down where he was at, which is why he wanted the cops to call him before when they got there so he could say whatever he was going to say or do whatever he's going to do.
Right.
Trayvon asked him, "Why are you following me?" And Zimmerman replied with, "What are you doing here?" At which point, his girlfriend says that she heard someone push Trayvon. A scuffle ensued. Now, if you let George Zimmerman tell it, Trayvon came up and he
attacked him,
popped him in the jaw after he asked a question, and he went reaching for his gun, and he said, "You gonna die tonight." Okay, let me just tell you something about just people in general, unless you're dumb. If you see somebody that has a gun holstered to themselves, and if you're not quite sure if you can get that gun
attack
and use it on someone else, you are not going to reach for that person's gun. What you are doing is introducing an unknown now into this scenario. The unknown is, if I holster this gun, am I going to get it? Or is he going to get it? Am I getting shot that night, or is he? I do not believe Trayvon went for his gun because of that. But the part you did not hear, which I had to post these somewhere, was there was another timeline at that precise point where neighbors around now is starting to call 911. On one of the ladies' 911 calls, you distinctly hear somebody crying out, "Help me, help me." Now, George Zimmerman at the time was like a 35, 36-year-old man. My voice sounds differently than my voice did when I was 17. You can clearly tell who was screaming in that. My question is, if you are the man with the gun, if you have all the control, if you know you can take that gun out at any time and shoot somebody, why are you the one then that's going to be on the ground screaming? Because that's what he said. He goes, "Oh, everybody says it was George Zimmerman." Now, George Zimmerman never came and said it was him. Now, did he? Nope. But everybody else is saying it was him that was on the ground that was screaming.
Him.
Right?
Right.
So, here's the question. How is it that he was the one on the ground screaming, since that's what people are saying, but Trayvon was shot square in the heart? If you're tussling the way you say you are, Trayvon got the gun the way he said that he supposedly got it. He was trying to take the gun back, and the trigger was pulled. That's not a sit-up straight in the heart shot. You may hit a thigh, you may hit a groin, you may hit a stomach.
You may hit some. You're not gonna have a straight shot. You're gonna shoot, and the bullet's gonna land where it's gonna land.
Right, but he was shot directly in the heart.
Right.
So the question is, do you think that that's probably what happened that night? And you can tell he wasn't coming from a burglary. The boy had a bag of Skittles and Arizona iced tea in his hand.
Right.
What do you think probably happened that night?
I think that it's what you said about that he was looking for a fight for sure. I mean, I don't dispute the fact that this man was looking to fight someone, that he was looking to be a small town hero. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you will, I'm not discounting that or discrediting it. Man, I really wanted to look at this a different way other than race. Now I'm having a little bit of trouble now actually looking at it from a different perspective than race.
Well, think on this one. Remember,
just
Trayvon Martin,
because if it had been simply that he chased the boy, he shot the boy, he claimed that it was self-defense, I could say that maybe he was just looking for a fight, not necessarily race. You know what I'm saying? But considering that he chased him and then attacked him, but then claimed that he was a child, essentially. I mean, he wasn't 18, was he? He was what, 17?
Yep.
So he's a child. I'm sorry. I don't care what any kind of a law says or what a statute of not statute of limitations, age of consent says. 17 is still a child, okay? So, to shoot anyone, but especially a child, square in the chest, where it pierces their heart, you know what I'm saying? Square, to have a shot that head on, there's no way that this other person was fighting you off, or that this other person went for your weapon, or this other person punched you in the jaw, and then you just happen to have a good enough aim on your shot to hit him in the chest like that? No, sir. Because here's the thing. If you had hit him in the side of the head, if you had hit him in a leg, in the groin, like you said, even in the breast area, but not necessarily square into his chest like that, then I could say, okay, maybe there was a scuffle. But when you have such a head-on shot as to shoot someone in close range with a shot that you know is going to take them out, what scuffle, George Zimmerman?
And the thing that makes the whole thing worse is it was a one-shot kill. If you are truly,
it was an execution style.
Right. If
There was no.
If you truly fear for your life and you're wrestling with somebody, you're just hoping to shoot them enough to get away. Not be point blank precise and pull. Okay.
Right, and he was shot execution style. Like it was a one shot, one kill type of thing. It wasn't like he had, 3 or 4 bullets in different areas of his body. I mean, it was a single gunshot wound to the chest, and he was gone. So
as you guys probably know, on July 13, 2013, George Zimmerman was completely acquitted of second-degree murder and manslaughter, okay? I'm going to say this, and then I'm going to give you 2 of the 3 reasons that I think, I'm going to give you 3 reasons that I say that this had to play with race. So, after he got acquitted, they talked to a couple of jurors. I think one of the jurors' name was B38. She was an African-American female. She was the only African-American, and I think she's African-American and Hispanic at the same time, that was on the panel. Everybody else was white. They asked her in Good Morning America, I think it was, why did she come up with that verdict and how did she feel? And she pretty much said, as far as she was concerned, the law said she had to say that George Zimmerman was innocent, but in her heart, she believed that George Zimmerman was guilty because she didn't believe that the defense had proved beyond a shadow of a doubt why this happened. They asked her another question being, if she had to do this all over again, what would she do? Again, she made reference to if the law says she had to, she would, but God was going to be able to handle George Zimmerman his own. What it really came down to, what she finally admitted, was that at the beginning, the 12 of them was split. She was the one that said, manslaughter, and there's a couple of people that said not guilty, but the majority was, someone that said guilty. over time, and she said not a large amount of time, they all wanted to change their vote to guilty. And she didn't, and she felt pressured to. Now, before everybody go off and call her a punk and all that, because she got pretty much berated all over internet that I read, I have been in these situations in the jury before. I just have a little bit stronger backbone. I have been the only black person on all jury, and the sad thing about it was the defendant wasn't even black. He was white. Because Easter was coming, I had 10 other people, because there was 2 of us on there that was black, that wanted to send this man to jail for the rest of his life because they didn't want to miss their Easter ham. And I said, I'm here to do a duty, and I wouldn't want somebody to put my life in jeopardy because you want to eat some Easter ham and hang out and get the Easter eggs. This man's going to sit in jail the rest of his life. We hung the jury, or we threatened to hang it, and then they all came back and just said, well, we'll just say not guilty. And I said, if you truly feel he's guilty, that's fine. You have to vote that way, and we're just going to vote what we feel, but you've already admitted to us that you just want to get to your grandbaby's house for Easter, and that ain't fair.
Right.
So before we go on with my 3 reasons, what do you think about the juror that's come out and pretty much said, hey, I'm sorry, I believe that George Zimmerman is guilty. I couldn't vote that way because of the people I was with. She's admitted that she's sorry. She's admitted that she loses sleep over it. She's admitted that he should be in jail right now. What's your thought about this juror?
Look, you know what? This is the thing about jury duty. I've never been on jury duty. I probably never will for reasons that we're not going to get into today. But I understand where she's coming from. Because if I was her, I wouldn't want, here's the thing. Let me make sure I'm getting this right. The defense is the one that the defense is for the criminal, right?
The defendant in any case, yes. So in this case, yes.
Okay.
For the criminal George Zimmerman. Mm-hmm.
So the prosecution would be for Trayvon Martin, for the victim. Right,
and they're the ones that has to prove the case.
So the prosecution has to prove without a reasonable doubt that this person is guilty. And so legally, she's right. Legally, she had to find him. Legally, at least in my opinion. Y'all can come at me in the comments or whatever. That's fine. But honestly, I applaud her for doing what she was legally obligated to do. Because when you go for a jury duty, at least from my understanding, Dad, correct me if I'm wrong since you've done it. When you go for jury duty, it is you have to do what they've legally told you to do, right? So if they're telling you that legally you have to acquit this person if they are not found, if it's not proven within a reasonable doubt for them to be guilty. She even said that in her heart that she thought that he was guilty, but she just did not feel that the prosecution did their duty in proving him guilty. So I don't even hold her responsible for that. That's on the prosecution, because the prosecution are the ones that are supposed to find, to prove to you, to not even to convince you, but to literally lay it out. This is what happened. This is what he did. The end. They are the ones that are supposed to lay that out for you. And if you can't look at all of the evidence that the prosecution gives you and say without a reasonable doubt that you think that he is guilty by what they gave you, then she did what she was told to do.
And see, why I said I feel for baby girl, I really do.
I do too. I do.
But I see it a different way, and here it is. I think that there is 3 things, if I sat on that jury, I could have hung it for, because there's 3 things to me that said reasonable doubt. The first one is the 911 call. Just for the fact that he made those comments. Now, what I would have done, because I've been jury foreman on these juries I sat on before, I would have sent a note back to the judge. And the note I would have sent would have said this: I need to know, or can you please ask what was meant by these a-holes, and when he called him an effing dog, I need to know what context that's in. That's the first one. The second one that would cause me to hang it is where they found George Zimmerman at when the cops came. The 911 dispatcher had already told him, stay where you are. We don't need you to follow him. We're sending people right now. But by the time the cops had got there, he's standing over Trayvon's body that he just now shot. Why? What was the need that you had to follow him when you've already been told by 911 to stop where you are? The third thing that would have made me hang it is when you hear the part of that tape that they probably played in trial where there's somebody screaming, help me, help me. To me, and you look at his injuries, because there is a timeline that was given by a reporter, I think on CNN News, where they chronicled that and gave you the time. George Zimmerman had a bruise to the back of his head, like he probably rolled over and got kicked, and he had a cut on his nose. That was it. And one of the detectives said from the amount of time alone that it took for the paramedics and the police to get there, plus the amount of time that they worked on Trayvon when they got there, there would have been no time for them to work on George Zimmerman as if he had substantial injuries and he walked away from the ambulance that night, which means that he wasn't that hurt. Those three things alone for me is reasonable doubt enough for me to say there could have been something more to this than that. But going off of that, before I give you my other reasons, let's talk about juror B37. So George Zimmerman did have a fan on the jury, juror B37. She came out after 38 did. Now understand,
right,
and this was pointed out, so this is important for the listeners to know this before I talk about 37. Juror B38 went on this news show free of charge. She has not then or since tried to make a movie. She don't have a book deal. No one's paying her to come. She just wanted to come because she felt the way she felt about the case. She wanted everybody to know how she stood. Not the case with B37. B37 has a book deal in place where she's already written a book. She's getting paid now for appearances, which is the only reason why she came out. And she sat on a news show in silhouette, okay, and said that the Trayvon Martin case was not a race issue and that she does not feel that he was profiled at all. That George Zimmerman just had a good heart and he was concerned about the break-in. Now, before I tell you that was kind of so juror 37 is my first big reason. I'll tell you my other two after you tell me, what do you think about juror B37? Is she trying to profit off of that now? Or does she really feel that way about George Zimmerman from all the things she's heard?
Look, I don't know. I mean, I know that that's not a good answer, but look, I'm on this podcast to be 100% honest. Like you mentioned at the beginning, I got a little bit of flack. I'm not going to mention no names. It doesn't matter. It's someone that I do know on a personal basis. They know who they are, and it's fine. Like, I did get a little bit of flack for being honest in my opinion about what could have happened between Jodi Arias and Travis Alexander. And I'm going to be honest about this. I don't know. But I'm here to be honest. Like, I'm not, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm not going to say, oh, well, maybe you're right, Dad. You know what I'm saying? Like, or maybe they're right. Like, I'm not really, 10 years ago, you could have called me up. I probably would have swayed to somebody's opinion, you know what I'm saying, just to save face. But I'm 26 years old. I'm too old for all that. So I honestly, I don't know. I would like to believe that she's not just trying to profit. You know what I'm saying? Like, I would like to believe that she has, that she's a strong enough woman in herself to have her own opinions without having to, you know what I'm saying? But who knows? Like, she could be saying what she's saying now to profit off of whatever, if she thinks that there's some kind of an outcome, but she could also just really feel that way at this point. You know what I mean? So, girl, I hope that she's able to have her own, I hope that she's not doing it just for some kind of a benefit, whether that's financial or otherwise. but that's a tough one for me. For me personally, that's a tough one for me to answer as to whether I think that she is sound in her opinion, or if she is trying to get some kind of benefit out of it.
So I'm going to give you guys now the two big reasons why, no matter how hard I tried, this came back to a racist case for me. The first one is this. If you guys did not know this, there is going to be a documentary release next month, which is July of this year. It's going to be called Rest in Power, the Trayvon Martin story. It is actually going to be a series, so it's going to be much like some of the Jodi Arias ones with the Bill Cosby. It's going to be like 6 or 8 episodes long on the Paramount Network. That comes into play. Another thing I want you guys to keep in mind that I didn't say is remember that Trayvon Martin was and is the face of what we now have as the Black Lives Matter movement. He's the reason why that whole movement began. No matter all
that
the other
caused controversy,
right? No matter all the other murders and stuff of African Americans that you've heard, Trayvon Martin was the first one. So back to my first tip. Jay-Z is behind the production of Rest in Power, the Trayvon Martin story documentary. What if I was to tell you that George Zimmerman, despite all of the death threats, because understand that when he was acquitted, the Black Panthers put a death threat on his head. I don't know if you guys know a lot about the Panthers. Well, when's the last time you heard about them, seen them in the news? They're not one of the organizations that's very boisterous and big. They don't come out and threaten people, but at this case, they did. Even up under that, George Zimmerman started to threaten Jay-Z about this documentary. He threatened to kill Jay-Z if this documentary ever came out. From other things I have read and researched, he's also made snide comments against other people that are of African American descent. He's threatened to kill other African Americans. So that goes to my point of, if you don't want it to be a racist case, sit back and shut up, because now you're making it worse than what it is. But here is my biggest piece that I said, I can't take this out of race. If you didn't know, in 2016, there was an auction that was held. The auction that was held was for the gun that he used to shoot Trayvon Martin. The organization that was putting this up for auction is called the United Gun Group. Trayvon Martin's parents, along with their attorney, had written to them and protested the sale of the gun. They swore that they would take the gun down, but then they recanted in the statement by saying that since George Zimmerman was acquitted of this crime, they cannot and would not stop any of their users from selling the gun, so they were going to go forward with the auction. Now, it had been said that there was bids up to $65 million for this gun. However, they were all hoaxes because people that protested against this gun being sold, for obvious reason, was trying to clog up the algorithm of the site by putting up fake bids. But being that United was prepared for this, they had it set up another algorithm that will kick out all of the bets that were no good. So George Zimmerman unloaded this gun for $250,000. That's what he got. It was sold to a dude by the name of Racist Shootface, and George Zimmerman had put in the description of the sale, now you can own a piece of American history. Now, before I get your feedback on this, there's one more piece to that. When asked what he was going to do with the money, George Zimmerman said that some of the proceeds would go to fight against Black Lives Matter and them trying to put a stop to police shooting blacks. What's your thought on that?
Look, George Zimmerman. Look, homie, I tried. Okay, I tried real hard to say that you weren't a racist. But I could punch you in the face right now, sir. What do you mean? I'm sorry. Like, look, George Zimmerman, if you are listening to this right now, I recant everything that I have said in this podcast. Because, look, I was hoping that this was not a racist thing. I was not aware of all these death threats. I mean, I guess I just did not dig far enough. I don't know. But I was not aware of these death threats against Jay-Z. Look, you auctioned the murder weapon. Like, I'm sorry, I'm gonna come out and say it. Like, I have always thought that George Zimmerman should have served time. I have never thought that this should have been protected underneath the standard ground law. I really don't. I mean, truthfully, I don't really believe in this. I mean, I don't believe in the standard ground law in the way that it is written, or the way that, I should say, the way that it is used. I believe in the standard ground law if you actually have a true threat. I mean, if somebody was to be breaking into my front door right now, I would stand my ground. You know what I'm saying? And I understand that, but you can't just be thinking that you can just, like, stand your ground for what? Like, you weren't even standing your ground for anything. Like, I've never really thought that he should have been protected underneath that law, because I have always felt that the stand your ground law should be a bit more specific. I understand if they're coming into your house. I understand if they are trying to break into your car. I understand if they are trying to break into your place of business, but you are out in the middle of the street, sir. So what ground are you trying to stand? Like, I don't know. I'm sorry.
And the thing is
right now,
up until I found this, I wanted to look at this case differently than any other African American did, because I'll be honest, that's the first thing that came up when he was shot. If you go and Google George Zimmerman, Trayvon Martin, there's a bunch of pictures that comes up. There's a bunch of topics that say, would it have been different if George Zimmerman was a black man shooting a white kid? I always try to debunk the easiest reason, which is always racism with us.
Racism. Right.
But when I started looking into this even more and I found that, I'm like, I can't debunk it anymore, because you yourself, George, is putting that out there. No matter how many times your wife is saying, no, I don't think he's not racist and not this. Okay, you sold a gun. If I shot a kid and it was really self-defense, first of all, my whole life's going to be wrecked, because I got kids your age or older. Second of all, I don't want to auction the gun. I want to get the gun as far away from me. You know, I don't want to profit off the gun. Just throw it away. Throw it in the bottom of a canal, ocean, something like that.
Throw it in the lake or something. Like, I'm sorry, Florida, we got a lot of beaches and stuff. Like, go out onto the pier in Daytona and throw it off. Like, I don't do that. Nobody go throw their gun off the pier. You'll probably get arrested. Don't do that. But I'm just saying, like, there are plenty of bodies of water in this state that you could have got rid of that gun if it was just that you didn't want it anymore. You know what I'm saying? And if you truly were standing your ground, George Zimmerman, like, you wouldn't first of all, if you were truly standing your ground, like, you would not have chased the child. I'm sorry. I don't care. If he's not on top of you when you see him, like, there's no ground to stand. Like, you chased him down and then tried to say that you stood your ground. And that, I'm sorry, like, that whole jury, like, shame on y'all. I'm sorry, like, I'm sorry. Me personally, it's good that I was never, like, having to do jury duty or nothing, because I probably would have hung the jury, just because I don't feel like, even if I didn't feel like there was enough to convict him, I definitely would not have thought that there was enough to acquit him.
But think about it, though, because of the laws that we have in our land, which is the double jeopardy law, right? If there was no double jeopardy law, I don't think you'd ever done that, because then his motive could have been questioned and he could have been retried. Okay, Mr. Zimmerman, if you really was sorry that, this really was self-defense, you selling guns, $250,000, let's go back to court. But also, if you look at the jury selection, I don't know, I know you've never been on a jury, but the defense and the prosecution gets to pick who they want on the jury. Each side could dismiss somebody. Notice that there wasn't very many colors in the jury box. And when I say colors, I don't necessarily mean black. I don't care if you're Asian. I don't care if you're Mexican.
Any race.
Any other race other than the white race. When we say colors,
we say any color but white. So
I don't care if you're purple or green. Just give me somebody else up in there that could have a different opinion on what I'm saying. But when I read those things, I was still like, all right, maybe George is a little crazy. But then when you come up and you flat out say, I'm using a whole bunch of this money to debunk Black Lives Matter, because this group is the reason Trayvon Martin they marching for Trayvon, and they causing havoc in the police force, and they bringing down corrupt cops. That's what I'm gonna do. Sorry, that's a racist situation, because I could never take a gun and sell it for somebody if I killed a kid or injured a kid or something else. I'm truly sorry. And if I'm not in jail, I'm on all of the news crews telling people, hey man, look, you may hate me, but I'm sorry. I didn't shoot him because he was white. I didn't shoot him because I wanted to kill him. This kid nearly attacked me. He was strong. I had no option but to shoot him. He ain't saying any of that.
Right.
So I was hoping the man was just crazy. But from those listeners, you can make up your own mind. That's the reason why I could not take race out of it. And when I read that, I was sitting here. I read it 4 times. I couldn't believe it. I even went further to look up to make sure it was legitimate. It is legitimate. My question, I guess he was entitled to get the gun back because he got acquitted, because my first question was, well, why the heck does he even have the gun back? That was evidence in a murder, but I guess since he was acquitted, he could ask for the gun back, and they gave him his gun back. So
that is how it works. I don't know if it works that way everywhere, but it is how it works in Florida, unfortunately. I mean, he was acquitted, so there was no reason for them to hold his gun at that point. It was no longer, I mean, from the moment that he was acquitted, it was no longer considered a murder, so there was no reason to hold his gun in evidence.
Right. So in closing on this very controversial case, what do you got to say in closing on the Trayvon Martin case?
What I gotta say in closing is, first of all, I want to punch George Zimmerman in the face. So, yeah, we need to be getting them shirts done, because I'm just gonna buy one in every color that says I want to punch him in the face, just one in every color, just to, that way I'm not wearing, like the same shirt every single time, but like it says the same thing. You know what I'm saying? Because look, George Zimmerman makes me angry. Man, I wanted to look at this and be like, maybe he's not racist, like maybe he just was like pissed off that day, but like, homeboy, you threatened Jay-Z, and you used the proceeds of a murder weapon, the sale of a murder weapon, to try to stop Black Lives Matter. Like, no, sir. Like, I'm sorry. Like, no. I'm sorry to anybody that has to look at my face and the weird faces that I make on these videos. But, look, it's my real reaction. So, first of all, I want to say that my thoughts and prayers go out to Trayvon's family, because I am sure that to this day, even though it has been about 6 years since this boy was taken away, I'm sure that they are still grieving. I'm sure they will. It's not something that will ever go away. I cannot imagine losing a child, especially not in that kind of a way. I mean, some people would say that I have lost children, but my children are still alive, so they're not really lost. I know where they are. You know what I'm saying? So, so my heart and prayers go out to them. And, rest in peace to Trayvon. This was completely unnecessary. Like, I'm sorry to say, I don't care. I mean, I do care, but I don't care. In this situation, because he wasn't high, because it doesn't appear that he was doing anything he was supposed to do, because the boy was carrying Skittles and an Arizona sweet tea. Like, these are things that teenagers carry. Like, I had a thing for Arizona. I mean, I don't like it now because I drank too much of it in high school, but I had a thing for Arizona sweet tea in high school. You know what I'm saying? And I love me some Skittles. So, like, these are things that kids carry with them. Like, if he had shot him and they had found, like, a knife or a gun or something, I could maybe say, okay, maybe he threatened him. But he didn't have anything like that. Like, what's the boy going to do? Throw his Skittles at your head? Like, please. So, this completely unnecessary. I mean, my heart goes out to his girlfriend that unfortunately had to hear all of this transpire. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's another tragedy in and of itself, because I mean, I'm sure that is traumatizing. I'm sure she's had her own healing that she's had to go through, counseling or whatever. So I hope that she is maybe not healed, but on her way to healing. I hope his parents are on their way to healing as much as one can in a situation this way. And to George Zimmerman, dude, I think you got away with murder. I mean, if I'm going to be real, I would think that George Zimmerman completely got away with murder. I agree with you, Dad, when you say that there was plenty of evidence to show that this should not have been covered or protected under stand your ground. There was plenty of evidence to show that this was just George Zimmerman looking for, I don't know what, a fight or whatever, but regardless, it shouldn't have happened. And I think that, George Zimmerman is about on the pedestal of Casey Anthony for me. The only difference being that Casey Anthony killed her own child, in my opinion. You know what I'm saying? I've given that, we have an episode about that. But, he's about on that same pedestal. Because, dude got away with it scot-free. He's out there. What is he doing? You know what I mean? Maybe he moved or whatever. I'm sure he did. But he's out there living his life and going about life. I'm sure he's got a job and all that stuff. You know what I'm saying? So while this may follow him when people pull up his name or do a search for him for jobs, it definitely doesn't impact him the way that it impacts Trayvon's friends and family. So, this is a tragedy. I'm mad that George Zimmerman got off with this. But more than anything, I am sad that Trayvon's life was lost for no reason. So that's where I'm at.
Well, here's why I sit on the case. Race aside, a young man lost his life over stupidity. And I think a lot of people that's given power is not looked at 100%. George Zimmerman should have been looked at. I'm sure somewhere in his past, he's got some issues otherwise, because people doesn't become this violent overnight. You've done something like this before. What was the real reason that you felt like you need to carry a gun? These are questions you should be asking.
Right.
I do want to talk a little bit on this case about the group that I feel Trayvon Martin is responsible for finding, which is Black Lives Matter. I know that Black Lives Matter gets a lot of flack, and they're yelled about. They're all, now we've got Blue Lives Matter because Black Lives Matter is against the police. It wasn't necessarily that they were against the police. I work for Apple, as I've said that before. And the one thing, no matter if you guys like the products that we build or not, the one main reason I like working for this company is because Apple is truly a company that is diverse. They want to make sure everybody feels included. For goodness sake, I work for the only company that has the first openly gay CEO anywhere in the land, and he's come out about it, being Tim Cook. In February, because they do something for every month. Women's Movement Month, Indian Month, LGBTQ Month. So February is Black History Month. This year, they brought Patricia Colliers to us. Now, she is one of the CEOs of Black Lives Matter. And the woman that was interviewing her from Apple was white. Black Lives Matter really wanted to put whites and blacks together so that we can come together for a common bond and say we can stop all of this. Because that was one of the questions that Patrice was asked, which is, what can we as white Americans do to get this? Understand, they're not out there trying to protest because they want to start problems. They want young black people to stop getting shot. They want white people who's on board that's decent, and gray people and green people and brown and yellow people to come together and say, no matter what color you are, we got to stop this nonsense. But unfortunately, it's starting with us because we already have 4 people that's already been killed for no reason, unfortunately, by police. Trayvon would have been 22 years old right now. We're coming up on the 6th anniversary of his death. That boy did not get to get married. He didn't get to have a kid. His parents didn't get to see what he was going to become because of the action of one. I can't say what happened 100% when I was there that night because I wasn't there, but I have my beliefs. And I think if it wasn't for the fact, even if George Zimmerman did feel like he was breaking into houses, that was not his call to make. He was told by the police, stop, you're just going to make this even worse. He followed Trayvon that night, regardless of what his color is, because I guess he just wanted to fight with somebody, and he saw this kid coming through that he thought he can get over on. And because of that, and because of the other reasons that I've mentioned, and because I do believe that there is reasonable doubt, and because of things that his dumb butt is saying right now, I don't feel he's sorry at all. He should be locked up, the key thrown away, and never get out again. So the moral of the story, guys, is whatever color we are, we got to somewhere find a common bond somewhere. And this is coming from a man that has a white wife, 6 interracial kids, 4 interracial grandbabies. I love all people, but everybody ain't me. But if we don't find a way to stop this ain't going to be the last Trayvon Martin. And for those white people that's comfortable with it, it's going to start happening to Nick Jones and little Shirley too, because it's going to spread. Violence just spreads, and if it starts with one culture, it will end up in another. So let's somehow find some common ground to get along. All right, guys, we thank you again for being a part of another supercharged episode of A Day with Crime. Again, we thank Cherie Reed for bringing this topic to us today. We hope that we answered some of your questions, Cherie, or we did it justice for you. We also want to say thank you again for either donating to us on Patreon or just participating in our social media feeds. Hearing from you guys and being able to get things to you guys by Instagram and Twitter and our Facebook is always great because we get to hear back from you. If you have cases that you want to hear our opinion on, please send us an email at davidcrime@gmail.com. And before I turn over to Neva for her final thoughts, I will say this just to back her up. Yeah, guys, fortunately, some people's going to agree with us. Some people is not. We're kind of the podcast that if the opinion is unpopular, we have to give it to you. We don't want you as listeners to feel like we dumbing something down or we wanted to leave something out because we were afraid of what somebody would think. We're gonna come at it to you. My opinion is gonna be different than Geneva sometimes. Geneva's gonna be different than mine. And sometimes at the end, we may find out, you know what? Now listening to this whole thing, I may be wrong. So please understand that we do this for you guys, the fans, so you don't feel like we're sugarcoating anything. You get the real research and you can truly have a real informed opinion because we laid everything out there for you. Neva, what do you got to say in closing?
All right, so all I got to say is, like my dad was saying about Black Lives Matter, it's not just for black people. I mean, I know that it's the movement in itself has caused a lot of controversy. We've had a lot of, maybe not a lot, but they're definitely, I mean, in the news and stuff, like if you don't do real digging on what Black Lives Matter is supposed to be, if you don't choose to do your own research on it, it can look like it's just a whole bunch of extremists, you know what I'm saying? And I feel like every group has extremists, you know what I'm saying? Like Black Lives Matter is no different than any other group. They all have extremists, but the extremists do not speak for the whole. I know that's what anybody sees in the media because that's what makes good news. But my suggestion to everyone is to always do your own research before you form any kind of an opinion. Like my dad said, he and I aren't always going to agree, but I think that the one thing that we can't agree on is that this podcast is a place for everyone. We try to be, I hope anyway, as inclusive to everyone, no matter your sexual orientation, your gender, your race, or your religion, or anything else. You know what I'm saying? We try to be inclusive of everyone. We try to make this a show that even kids listen to. My stepdaughter just moved here. She is 11 years old, and she actually listened to one of the podcasts today. She asked if she could listen to one, and we listened to a Crime Junkie episode, and then we also listened to a couple of the our podcast here, and she likes it. So we try to make this as inclusive as possible because we want the younger generation to enjoy it. My generation, my dad's generation, and beyond. Like this is an inclusive place. So just do your research. But I do have a couple shout outs real quick, Dad, if that's cool. For some podcasts. So I don't think these are the podcasts that I featured this week in our weekly shout out. So I do a follow Friday on Twitter, and usually on that same day I will also do a little thing on our Instagram story. So if you guys want to check those out, the Instagram story is always up for 24 hours, and then it is I can see it, but y'all won't be able to see it anymore. It is archived after that. And then always you can find the Follow Fridays on Twitter. I may start even posting the Follow Fridays on Facebook. I think last week I did. I just wrote out each of the podcast names so they were easy to find. That way, if you are kind of wondering what our favorite podcasts are, or some suggestions for you to listen to, these are a couple. So this last week, I personally have listened to Court Junkie, Case File, All Crime No Cattle. My dad has mentioned Ear Hustle before, but I'm going to mention them again. Ear Hustle, I Got the Hell Out, The Drunk Detectives, and Two Macabre Ladies. Some of these are true crime. Actually, a majority of them are. Ear Hustle, however, is not. Like I said, they have been shouted out by us before. They are inmate stories from San Quentin. Now, I am going to give y'all a little bit of advisory. Some of these do have strong language. Listener discretion is definitely advised. Make sure that you check things like ratings. It will be, if they have labeled themselves as explicit, it will show that. Like, there will be a small little E next to, their name or the title. I think it's just the title of the episode. But they will be labeled if they are explicit. All Crime No Cattle is a new true crime podcast that I found by accident, actually. But it is a husband and wife team, Aaron and Shay. Aaron is the wife and Shay is the husband, and they're actually a really great podcast. They do have a little bit of language slip-ups. I don't think that they are labeled as explicit, but they're a good podcast. So those are the ones that I'm shouting out this week. Like I said, some of the, definitely use your viewer, like we're on video or something. Definitely use your listener discretion. If you got kids or whatever, some of these may not be. Definitely, I would not personally listen to Ear Hustle with your kids around. I mean, they're inmates, people, okay? They don't have the same censorship that we have out here. So those are just some of our favorite podcasts. Like I said, you can find the Follow Fridays on Twitter. I will post them on Fridays for about 24 hours on Instagram story, and I'll also start a list on our Facebook group.
And for me, real quick, I've binge watched pretty much the whole season 1 of Serial, and I've been listening to Undisclosed. Both of those podcasts deal with a young man named Adnan Syed, who we will probably be tackling him at some point here in the future. Very good podcast. If you don't know about that case, both of those are very informed, so check those out. All right, guys, I do want to encourage you as well. In July 2018, keep your eye out for that. Please do go watch and support the Rest in Power Trayvon Martin story of July 2018. So with that being said, guys, thank you for tuning in to another episode. And as always, don't commit no crimes out there,
so you don't end up on our podcast.